Why Mithraism? I mean, if you look it up, do the fact check about, let's say you say, how does Roman Catholicism relate to Mithraism? You're going to get a bunch of fact checkers that say it's not so. I know we've talked about it for a very, very long time, but it's just not so. Well, you know, the so-called facts often serve a predetermined narrative. In the case of cholesterol, they had already determined before they even began the study, they knew about the effects of cholesterol. Before they did any studies, they assumed they knew that certain fat consumption, certain exercise habits would prevent cholesterol problems. And so they did this study. Well, they didn't come up with anything. Long story short, there was no proof of anything. There was no proof that cholesterol killed you. There was no proof that high cholesterol killed people or that low cholesterol made you happier. In fact, the only real other science I saw on it, which was pretty funny, was I think it was on the cover of the Denver Post. They had a little block that said that people with low cholesterol are more likely to be murdered. Yeah, think about it. Why? Because they're so cranky. The reason is because they've taken these no cholesterol drugs, or they refuse to eat butter, they refuse to eat bacon, they refuse to have fats in their bodies, and so they are cranky people, and they irritate those around them, and they end up getting taken out because they're so hard to live with. I don't know if that's true or not. I think it's kind of funny. The Denver Post article, if I'm not hallucinating it, along with other things, I think that's the case. That's the truth. I think I really saw it. So Mithraism, the reason Mithraism is because there's a lot of imagery in Catholicism. I'm going to say really, really quick. I'm going to try to do the shorthand. Look up Mithra, go to Wikipedia, read about it. It's Mithraism is there's no women in it. Mithraism was a Persian. Mithra is a Persian god. He kind of disappeared. Zoroaster kind of drove him out. Zoroaster did not like the bull sacrifice, thought that was horrendous. That's a step forward in the year 600 BC to get rid of the bull sacrifice. That's the image of Mithraism. That's their icon, is Mithra kind of stabbing the bull. He's kind of got the lance and he's plunging into the bull, and he doesn't really want to kill the bull, but the sun god gave Mithra instruction to kill the bull. Mithra doing what he did, he kills the bull. The blood, it's a white bull, by the way, which the blood of the bull flows out onto whatever the earth and fertilizes the earth, and the tail of the bull turns into fronds of wheat, and the blood of the bull turns into grapes, or wine, like that. And the sperm or the semen from the sex organs of the bull, the bull is a fertility symbol. Slaughtering this fertility symbol, its vital fluid ends up creating life on earth. The whole earth sort of becomes, sort of like fecund, sort of like full of life and vitality. And it also awakened dualism. It awakened dualism. In other words, there were sleeping demons in the ground or in the earth or underneath things, and they came out, and that was because of the vitality that was awakened. And the bull got a happy ending. The bull rose into the sky as the moon. So in the Catholic Church, a host is a round disc. Even though think about it, Jesus is breaking bread. Jesus is breaking bread. But why is every host a round disc? Well, I know that there's symbolic reasons, the wholeness and it represents a kind of a perfection and all that kind of thing. But really, the host as received by Catholics bears no reference whatsoever to Jesus breaking bread at the Last Supper. So if we claim that we're based on a Jesus story, that's a stretch. The other one that's a stretch, as I said in the Easter Ascendancy video, I kind of say, well, I mean, if you wanted to start a club that respected or honored JFK, it's kind of counterintuitive to have pendants and jewelry and iconography of a limousine with Jackie on all fours trying to scoop up a piece of his brain. That seems like really more like trauma-based mind control than it does to faith or devotion. So the idea of hanging Jesus on a crucifix in front of every church makes no sense. That's very, very difficult to understand. I know that there can be theological tap dances that would put Fred Astaire to shame. However, the idea that we do this because God loved us, and so we're going to put this tortured body up there and see how he loved us. I don't know. You wouldn't do that to your kids, would you? If for whatever reason, I don't mean to belabor the point, just think about it. It's true. Everybody knows it's true that you wouldn't hang a torture device in front of people. You wouldn't commemorate Martin Luther King by showing him whatever slumped over a railing at the Lorraine Motel for all time in front of every place where he gathers. That would be like a celebration of his murder, right? Just like Jesus. It's in a sense a celebration of his murder. I know that they're saying, no, it's not a celebration of his murder. It's a celebration of the blood of the Lamb that washes us clean of our sin, which is exactly the point I'm trying to make, is that is Mithraic. There's hymns in Mithraism that celebrate the life-giving blood, the being washed in the blood, and all this kind of stuff. It's a very Christian and in that case more Protestant type term, being washed in the blood of Jesus. We don't really use that terminology. We have drink his blood, which is, again, in the Mithra sacrifice, there had to have been literal bull sacrifices. That was what Zoroaster wanted to put an end to back in, by 300 BC, they had pretty well drowned out Mithraism, and it had been pretty much replaced in Persia by Zoroastrianism, which is Ahura Mazda. That's the eminent God coming out of there's this sense of the pulse of the God coming to earth as this thing. Rudolf Steiner has a wonderful sort of wild-eyed, crazy, mystical way of looking at Ahura Mazda eventually manifesting as Jesus or whatnot. But you see the way that religion, faith, and the life in faith evolves across people, across cultures, for various reasons. Way over my head. I'm not going to do the paper on it anytime soon. But Mithraism is definitely from my point of view. Look it up, fact check it, and they're going to say, forget it, that guy's wrong. But I see it all over the place. And it explains to me why there's a cross with a torture, because Jesus, in a sense, the Paschal Lamb, is the Mithra bull. Jesus is the bull. The soldier piercing his side with a lance, even in the story, is that. Now, when did Mithraism start? It starts poking its head up into the Roman traditions as early as something like 60 or 70 BC. So Mithraic concepts were floating around in the culture among the elites. Like I said, this is Mithra is the word Mithra and contract, friend. Those are all interchangeable words. Mithra meaning friend, contract. In other words, if you're my friend, I'm getting something from you. That's our friendship is based on mutual benefit of some sort, and that's called a contract. You can see how that would be a very strong, a valuable, useful concept, religion for military, to express their need to cover each other's back, to watch each other, so that they can trust one another in the most vulnerable places of warfare. So you can see how that would become, and that's in fact what did happen, is the soldiers came back from Persia. They bring this idea of Mithra, who is again originates in India. Mithra Sham no Mitra, Sham Varunaha, Sham no Bhavat Varyama. Anyway, so they name off in that chant all these different gods: Mithra, Varuna, Aryama, or whatever his name is. So there's an indication, and the academics go with this, that there's a religious field of a religious unity that's Vedic or Indian, Indo-Aryan in nature, that extends all the way to Persia from India, the whole bit. Some fragmentation, some wars, some natural disaster, we don't know, broke the thing up. Like I said, Zoroaster then drives it down. It's picked up by the Roman expansion out into those areas, Persia, as far as Spain and whatnot. So you've got the Romans are all over the place. The soldiers themselves, and quickly the Senate and anybody, the emperor and whatnot, they have embraced Mithraism as a way of sealing deals. That's how they seal their contracts. The other thing about the Romans are, just to throw a bit of a jab at them to make this more plausible, the Romans aren't particularly creative. They absorbed Greek thought, they absorbed Greek culture to the extent that they could, but they don't really come up with much. They're way industrious, way enthusiastic. There's a lot of great qualities that they have. But I, to my knowledge, from what I was aware of back in Latin class or whatever, the Romans didn't really come up with that much stuff on their own. Even a lot of their stories, their myths, their gods, their goddesses were all borrowed from the Greeks or stolen from the Greeks, however you want to word it. So there's no reason to believe that they would be any different relative to Mithra. They didn't dream that up. They found it. They liked it. It served their purposes. They adapted it to their purposes. Now, the Roman Empire is breaking down around that time, around 100 A.D. And around 200 A.D. I think it's from 100 A.D. to 200, maybe even was nearly into the 300s. I think there's a Christian persecution among the Roman Empire because they're having troubles. They need to identify problems, and for what reason, that was a topic that went on even to St. Augustine, is that the pacifism, I'm going to say possibly Buddhism, of Christianity, because of the Silk Road and because of Jesus, and we don't know where he was. Maybe Jesus knew some Buddhism. I don't know. I mean, who knows? But in any case, it's not that big of a stretch to see the Buddhist type thought in Christianity. In any case, not to make that an argument point, there has been a point, and St. Augustine argues against it, that Christianity sort of disempowers people. It makes them pacifist, weaker. It's their allegiance is declared with God, with Jesus, with the saints, and not with worldly. They're too detached. See, that's an argument that the Hindus made about the Buddhists as well. They're too detached. So in the Hindu realm, they came up with the Bhagavad Gita as almost the argument against Buddhism. And in this way, Mithraism, that's what was fueling, that's the glue that was holding the decision makers in Rome, the men, gluing the Senate and this Mithraism glued them together. And they saw Christianity as a threat to the togetherness of their society. Well, when Constantine, who was, if I remember correctly, the son of one of the ones who did a persecution of Christians, Constantine in 325 sort of saw the light and became Christian. And when he did that, he declared the whole Roman Empire to be Christian. It was a great, and you know what? And the academics do this, they kind of go, and you know what? What's funny about that is Mithraism, which was very prevalent among Romans up until 300 or 325. Almost as soon as Christianity was declared the state religion, Constantine, they say he suppressed Mithraism. They say he suppressed all other religions, suppressed. But I would say that there was me speculating, that there was an understanding among these people that they were losing it. That the Roman Empire, which had been great and powerful and extensive, they no longer had the material means, spiritual will, or the ability to stay with it, and it was fragmenting all around them. And that the idea of a unified world religion, such as Christianity, was a solution. Now, why not Mithraism if they liked Mithraism? Well, because Mithraism was by nature a tolerant religion, because Mithraism came out of this Vedic tradition, which is philosophically liberal, socially conservative, and now we're talking about Constantine shifting gears into something that's philosophically conservative, meaning one religion, one belief, one creed. I believe in God the Father Almighty, etc., the Nicene Creed that was established in 325 at the Council of Nicaea, and suppressing Mithraism, meaning we're not going to do that anymore. It was too diverse. It was too tolerant, Mithraism, and it no longer served their purposes. So I'm going to say that's why Jesus is able to be on the cross in the apse. It accounts for a lot of the forms and of the culture, which is in Catholicism, you have the irony is that, man, you remove the women from a Catholic church and nothing's happening anymore. What you got is a priest and a bunch of sad parishioners, because the women do everything. They're making the potlucks, they're doing the, what do you call them, casserole dishes. They're the ones that are pulling this stuff together. They're doing the singing. They're playing the organ. They're cleaning up they're cleaning the priest's garments, and they're washing altar cloths. The women do everything. And yet, it's a patriarchal expression on the north side of the rail. It's priests and bishops and cardinals. Now, they have allowed women on the other side, but I'm just saying, so you have a very clear division. It's quite a schizophrenic sort of a split, where you've got this kind of patriarchy. Also, it's like, where do you get the vestments from? Where'd you get, the chalices and all these different kinds of accoutrements of, and I don't know, I'm going to say that it came either through Zoroastrianism or other things, or the fact that Mithraism was the religion of choice among those who exercised statecraft, so that the clergy in the Catholic Church naturally, because of the culture, naturally tends to align itself with political powers. Thus the complaint of the Catholic Church being soft on Nazis, instead being friendly with Nazis, or the complaint about Pope Francis being friends with some brutal dictator in Argentina back in the day. That gets into a whole other thing, but I'm going to say that is a natural outgrowth of this schizophrenia, where you have something back in the pews and then you have something on the other side. If you just notice, I think I said this elsewhere, a courtroom is set up the same way. You have the north side of the rail, the south side of the rail. South side of the rail is the people. North side of the rail, that's where the action is. It's the way our society is set up. We know, there's this thing on the north side of the proverbial railing. Once you're on the other side of that rail, you're really playing the game. On the other side, you're watching the game. It's a spectator sport. The people in the pews are really spectators, even though they do everything. And the people, not everything, because, priests, some are very, very, very active and dynamic. But on the north side of the rail, you have a priesthood that is kind of like, we don't know what goes on with those guys. We don't know what they're thinking. They, they protect their thoughts and things like that. So, they don't really say that much. So I'm trying to connect basically three things. I said that culture sort of wraps around imagery from different places, co-opts them, turns them into something. And the three things I'm trying to connect are a reality that you can call divinity or Godhead, or the field, a powerful field of influence. That I've already said many times, not to be too redundant, that something like DNA, just natural processes, the organic nature, it truly implies a profound and infinite intelligence of some sort, from my point of view, as this creature on the earth. And we don't know how any of this stuff really works, and so we really don't know where anything came from, electricity and gravity and whatnot. So we want to connect the reality. I want to connect my experience, and I want to connect that mediating aspect. The mediating aspect could be the form of, in this case, let's say the Catholic Church. It could be any religion, and each of those involve either images or they ban images. And I wanted to read this little piece from a great book that I would like to get into, Simulacra and Simulation by Jean Baudrillard. A little bit difficult because I think the translation is probably more literal than effective. So it says, the question returns to religion and the simulacrum of divinity. Now, he uses the term simulacrum because simulacrum is essentially a model or a creation of some sort, sort of a simulation of something that has no original. It really can't refer to anything. So that anytime you have, this is a symbol of divinity, well, nobody's seen that divinity. And so no matter how you try to refer to something that's trans-dimensional, that's outside of our sense of what's time and space oriented, it's going to have no references. It's going to be made up. It's like, well, God is like an explosion, like a sunburst. Well, we're seeking these things. So he says, he uses the word simulacrum a lot. The question returns to religion and the simulacrum of divinity. And then he's got this quote, I forbade that there be any simulacra in the temples because the divinity that animates nature can never be represented. And then Baudrillard says, indeed it can be, but what becomes of the divinity when it reveals itself in icons, when it is multiplied in simulacra? Does it remain the supreme power that is simply incarnated in images as a visible theology? Or does it volatilize itself in the simulacra that alone deploy their power and pomp of fascination, the visible machinery of icons substituted for the pure and intelligible idea of God? This is precisely what was feared by these iconoclasts. And their millennial quarrel is still with us today. In other words, there were people who wanted to destroy images back around the time of whatever it was, during the Holy Roman Empire somewhere. The image smashers, the iconoclasts. Because they understood that the human mind can grab a hold of imagery and deify the image. They wanted to prevent that. So then what happens then, by creating an image or a process that you say is divinely inspired, if you create that, there's always the danger that that becomes the power itself, and that God isn't the effective power. But yes, now it's this. It's this. So it's a fine line, and that's what simulacra and simulation is highlighting. And I think it's very, very valid. Let's say we take the idea of Mary. I'm going to say that from my experience, at no time in Catholicism does the image of Mary or the image of Saint Joseph constitute the power itself. It gets close when you get these real estate kits where you bury a little plastic Saint Joseph in order to sell your house. It's getting close, very, very close to that magical realm where the statue itself has the power and not Saint Joseph. All of this is so that we can touch divinity, so that we can touch the power that we require. That, we don't really want to be bounded here in this stuff. We don't really want to slug through this. we want to be released. We want the freedom and release. That's what this is. The whole religious trip, the whole conversation, the videos, the 3 videos, is about how do you experience the freedom and release, because it is there. Freedom and release is there. There's no doubt about that. And without access to religious type imagery, let's say in a Christian context or some other religion, without access to that, you will, in fact, deify something else. You will deify science. You will deify expert opinion. You will deify the likes of Bill Gates, Noam Chomsky, Joe Rogan, God, I don't know, somebody. You will deify someone and hope, or Donald Trump. They can become deities if you don't understand that I'm here trying to experience freedom and release. I'm not here to be subservient to an idol of any kind. And yet, bowing before an idol and humbling myself before an idol, whether it's a Mary or a Jesus, understanding that I'm going through a process of prostrating myself in front of an effective power that's beyond my ability to understand. And that this is my access point. This is my gateway. This is my way of getting there. And that without it, this is real. Okay, if a loved one dies, you want a keepsake. Say, I don't need that. I have their memory. Well, the thing is, the memory doesn't quite get it. Their essence isn't there anymore. So it helps to have a handkerchief, a pocketbook, an address book, a favorite record, something that was from them. And it's even more effective if you can, like pets sometimes require the smell of it. If you can smell a little of that person's body odor, it's even more effective. So, you have these things, the smell, the look, it reminds you of them. These help to anchor us in realities that are no longer here, or that they never were here in the first place for us to touch and experience. And I guess that's my goal. And to sort of summarize, the miraculous, there are dreams, there's imagery, and these things anchor in what is effective within us. And just because we find a symbol or an image of, let's say, Mary, it doesn't mean that you're worshiping the image of Mary. I'm saying this to the so-called Protestants who would say, you worship Mary. Catholicism is based on a tradition of imagery. It comes out of the Greek and whatnot. And it's not quite accurate, I think. It may be fair, but it's definitely not accurate to say that I don't need those images. Well, you do need those images. And what's beautiful about being able to choose images, Hindus have lots of images, Catholics have lots of images. If you have the ability to choose these images, they can really act as sort of magical talismans against other image making. So whether or not they are effectively powerful in and of themselves, they can protect me from falling into other images. So, and that's the danger. That's a deal with the Catholic Church. That's what the Roman Empire had a problem with the Catholic Church, because they couldn't talk them into saying, hey, we're the great empire, we've got it all, Caesar's got it all, so you guys got to do what we want because Caesar's God or whatever. No, the Catholics or the Christians in the day said, Caesar's not our king, Christ is our king. We're on a kingdom not of this earth. So that the empire was already having problems, and it had further erosion, and they blamed that on Christianity. So that you have St. Augustine in his book, City of God. I think the purpose of the book was to say that the Christian way is a noble way, and it makes a better citizen. It doesn't weaken the empire, it strengthens the empire. So, whole other topic, and I'd say I'm done with this topic. Feel free to ask me any questions. I will try to get back with you on anything that you might have. I think it's a big topic, an interesting topic. I like to talk about it. Thank you very much for watching.